Hi, my name is Paige Allen, and I am presenting the issues portion of the group project for the case of Oregon versus Gonzalez of 2006. I am in group number 1. The issue presented in the case of Oregon versus Gonzalez is whether or not the Controlled Substance Act should allow the Attorney General to decide if a physician-assisted suicide serves as a legitimate medical purpose. It voids an Oregon statute put in place to allow this under special circumstances. The Controlled Substance Act, also known as CSA, was established in 1970. It was made to help regulate and control the use of certain drugs and substances. An amendment to the Act in 1984 allowed attorney generals to interfere and stop the use of controlled substances if it was inconsistent with public interest. Following that amendment in 2001, Attorney General Ashcroft determined that physician-assisted suicide was not a legitimate medical purpose. His decision went against an Oregon statute in place that allowed such use. The district court ruled for Oregon and issued a permanent injunction. The Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit affirmed that ruling. Under the Controlled Substance Act, physicians who prescribe controlled substances are practitioners who dispense controlled substances. In 1994, Oregon enacted its Oregon Death with Dignity Act. It allowed physicians to be able to give their patients lethal dose of assisted suicide substances to competent medical patients who are terminally ill and within 6 months of passing away. Oregon was the first U.S. state to pass such a law with a 51-48 ruling. A few years later, after the act was passed, several members in 1997 decided to write letters to the DEA saying that physician-assisted suicide violated terms of the Controlled Substance Act. A few months later, after the letters came through, the DEA did in fact declare that they did not consider physician-assisted suicide to be a legitimate medical purpose, and any physician that still administered these controlled substances would be prosecuted. Ashcroft had threatened that any physician who administered such medications would have their license revoked. The issue that Oregon presents is that the state usually regulates medical practices. Gonzalez, who is the new Attorney General replacing General Ashcroft, must be able to show and prove to Congress that an Attorney General can make such a determination. Gonzalez argues the interpretation of the Controlled Substance Act by Ashcroft is valid and that an Attorney General's interpretation of a federal regulation is entitled to deference. Gonzalez argues that Ashcroft's past interpretation is consistent with the CSA in 1984 amendment. The court will need to decide if the Oregon statute should be expanded on or limited by the federal government's interference, which are traditionally state-regulated medical practices.